Get
All
into
right.
it.
So
We're just going to tell people what we about our stories, right?
I think we should do that because, like, we've been doing music for a long time. People who be following the YouTube or following us on social, they might know a little bit, but, like, I feel like we don't really talk about the whole story. And if we put it down once and for all here, then we don't really have to go into it again in detail. But just if anyone ever wants to refer back to, hey, how did they get into music? How did they move to North America?
Check the tape.
Check the tape. So
they can check the tape. All right.
Where do
Go
we
for it, mate. Set us up. I mean, like our stories are very obviously we're brothers. We grew up in the same house. They're very parallel, but there's a couple of subtle differences in the middle, or I guess it's kind of the start because it's been a long journey. But there's been slight differences, but then they're very very similar. But yeah, where does it kick off, mate?
So
where do you want to start?
I know it's such an interesting thing. So maybe we start like where back in the 90s. So we got into hip hop. I mean, we're from Melbourne, Australia. For those who couldn't already tell,
represent.
But we live in Canada. We've been here almost 10 years. We got into hip hop early 90s. I can't really speak for you, but I was listening to like Chris Cross, that first album. Actually, no, you and I got that together.
Same.
And someone gave me a Vanilla Ice tape and like NWA stuff back in the day. But it wasn't that serious. I was playing guitar and into like metal and shit and grunge at the time, which was popping. Then I think, tell me if this was for you. So also as well, we're in Australia. In the 90s, hip-hop was not a thing. It was a subculture. It wasn't popular. It was damn near impossible to get the magazines, which were key back then, to get the CDs. Like they were
that was the only media. That was the only media.
That was, you're right.
Right?
There was
one of the only... It was pre-internet, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Because this was 90, like... The real year we got into it, for me, I can say, and you should probably the same, because if I did, you did, it was 93, I think, for Doggy Style from Through Snoop. Yeah. So, like, we couldn't get anything. So, getting the CDs and getting all the vinyl and the cassettes and all that shit that we were buying, like, was crazy expensive. And we were like children, so we could barely even let our parents let us get them, let alone have, like, regular money to be dropping on this stuff. So we got into it via Snoop. I remember my friend, who was our parents' business partner's son, Lee, he showed us What's My Name? Snoop's first solo single. I was like, what in the fuck is this?
Yeah.
It was just crazy to me. And I think
changer.
Yeah, it blew our minds. So then we got... I remember you bought Doggy Style, actually, because I stole it off you.
Yeah.
On cassette. And then we went back and we got The Chronic, and we're getting into Ice Cube and Cypress Hill. We got Black Sunday, which changed the game for us as well. Big album.
Absolutely.
So we were listening to hip-hop exclusively. Basically changed our lives. I think we couldn't... And at the same time, parallel, we got into like full 90s R&B with TLC, Mary J. Blige, Brandy...
Yes, all the soul stuff. The early sort of like it was R&B at the time, wasn't it? It wasn't even like neo soul yet.
Correct.
Technically,
I remember reading this recently. The first official neo soul album was Brown Sugar from D'Angelo in 1995. So I remember buying that. I remember buying that shit. I ordered it. Do you remember Sanity at Knox City? The one downstairs.
Of course. I bought so much from there. Yeah.
Whatever that store was, I think before it moved upstairs.
Sanity.
It was Sanity. Okay, so I ordered it. And I was so excited, and I had my Discman in the car. Mum took us to the mall, and we got it.
Gangster.
And I popped it in my CD player, and it was the clean version. And I was
spewing. That's right.
I went straight to shit down, motherfucker, and it was clean. And I was like when I was a kid, I think that shit cost me $40, and that was a big chunk of money when you're like 90. I was 14, and I was just so mad. I ended up buying it again later to get into it.
Understandably, Jesus.
So we got into it. I remember we were like free as far as like the rapping, we were freestyling, messing around in, I don't know, I remember being like 15 or 16 or something. You would have been young, like whatever your equivalent age would be.
2.5 years younger than that.
Yeah, there you go. So we were freestyling fucking around. We didn't know. I was writing raps back then.
We were playing basketball, listening to raps, and then just being stupid, teasing each other, and then just making it rhyme. And then that was how it got. A lot of it started. We were talking trash in our own respective driveways, backyards, basketball arrangements, and then we would just that's kind of how it would start, or at least accentuate it, because like, I don't know, the music kind of went. If you listen to Doggy Style playing basketball, you want to dunk on someone immediately when the music comes on, because the G-funk is undeniably smooth. It makes you want to,
get funky with it and start dunking on
Absolutely.
dudes. And we're checking those. Remember those? I don't know if they were called. It wasn't. There were those NBA videos that were like had hip hop soundtracks, and they were just like best of compilations. What were they called? Do you remember them shits?
It wasn't NBA Jam Session. What was it?
Or maybe it was NBA Jam Session.
I know.
Or was that the game? What was the game called? NBA Jam was the game. Where boom shakalaka.
Jam was the game.
That
Yeah,
shit
that was a game.
was lit. And even that had a fire soundtrack, if I'm not mistaken, too.
That was, well,
Or
I
did
don't
that have
really
music?
remember.
Fuck, man, it's such a long time ago.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I was going to say, like, there's certain things that I really can't remember. We're going to have to remember each other. Yeah, our memories are going to have to serve us well here.
Right?
Because, like, even, like, when we first got introduced to, like, the Snoop and the G-Funk and all that sort of stuff, like, we'd still, like, even our eldest cousin Dan, shout out, would show us. I remember him showing us Beastie Boys and, like, the Cypress Hill self-titled from 90. Who was that? Was that Dan?
You were 100% right. It was Dan. Shouts to Dan.
Yeah.
It was actually...
Yeah, because that was like, wow.
It was in 1988, and he played us Ice-T. Because I remember it reminded me of, like...
That was our first, like, introduction to...
Yeah, it felt like cemetery music. Because the beats
so
were,
dark.
like, mad... And we were a kid. And that was the first time I ever heard hip-hop. We're in his bedroom. He was, like, 16 with the long hair. We would have been mad young. And he was like, "Oh, yeah."
Hilarious.
He traveled, so he went to like the States and Canada and got the
Brought
stuff
back the
and brought
good.
it back. And
because we liked all the rock and stuff, I think the reason why I remember listening to Beastie Boys is because, oh, this is a nice blend of rock and rap, and like I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I remember seeing the cover of the Cypress Hill self-titled, like the first album, 91, I think that one's from.
Yes.
And yeah, I just remember those two specifically, like, oh, crazy. And like, as dark as it was, I thought it was cool as shit.
Yeah, because it was extreme music. I mean, at the time, now not so much, but because it was
most of the stuff we listened to, I guess, like the rock would have been happy and up-tempo, upbeat, like a little more sometimes, was it a good, was it the opposite of what we're listening to or being told to listen to?
The rock stuff, like the grunge, like Nirvana, Soundgarden, Metallica, which isn't grunge, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like that stuff was like, it was, for the time it was considered heavy. Right now it's not. Right. It's soft, but that stuff was kind of dark, but not in the same way. It wasn't extreme because it was like there was other music that would have been like, you know, the hard heavy metal shit, which we didn't get into. That would have been considered extreme, but it just felt like this music that was like, wow, it's like this fringe stuff, and it was attractive because it wasn't around, no one was into it. So basically, you and I, we didn't always do this because the area we grew up in, the type of people we were around, but we tried to surround ourselves with fellow hip-hop fans because it was the culture. Like, at the end of the day, the reason why all of these years later, damn near 30 years later, fuck, that's crazy, we've been listening to this literally the vast majority of our lives. We were like, you know, single-digit children back then.
That's crazy.
Isn't it crazy? And like, it's the culture has defined our lives, really, is what it is. Like, the culture is what we are here for. It's what we identify with. It's what we've known more than we haven't known, aside from the typical whatever Western or Australian culture, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, we were it was always kind of tough to find people who aligned with us. So whenever we did find someone who was into hip hop, we were just like drawn to them, and we became good friends typically because it was a topic of things that you and I were talking about, and like, yo, check this shit out, or blah blah blah. Like, so as it went on, we were I never really took the rap and stuff seriously. I remember I was 18 and I started a mobile DJing business with my boy.
And would you like to name that? What was the name of that one?
Left Lane Entertainment. Left Lane Entertainment.
Woo!
I've still got the business card is on my fridge.
On the fridge.
Because I got magnets, son. That. We actually were making guap. We were getting guap. We were making cash back then, yo. I've been hustling for a long time. And that was that was before rapping. I remember, I was thinking about this the other day. I was in my fucking beige Mazda 626, 1981, and I recorded some rap over something, and I played it to my partner, my friend Ben, who was my DJ partner, and he was like, yo, this is sick, and we're playing to all my friends, just me rapping and shit. And then I think I met like a bunch of dudes, like Shane Hood and all of his mates, you know. I met those dudes just through other friends, and was like, and we just used to hang out and freestyle. I was probably 19 maybe. At the time, I'm not sure if you were sort of participating in this stuff, because I was at the age where, even though we have 2.5 years difference, and when we're kids, it's all kind of the same. Yeah. That teenage year, then when, because of a few years older, made us kind of separate our activities or
for
whatever.
a couple of years. Yeah, it did for sure. So I was like, going to my respective parties at high school in the burbs, whatever. And then, you get a few rum and cokes, and you get a few beers, and all of a sudden, like, they, it started off with people like, oh, what's that song? What's that cool song you used to play? People would also diss me for at school. You know all about that. Yeah. But then, like, people would say, oh, what's that song you used to play in class, whatever. So then I started playing songs at parties eventually. Then people would get, turn them off. when they started to get played and people were like, oh, and then that R&B bandwagon came.
Yeah.
I would just kind of like, if there was enough beat at the end of a song, I'd just do a little 4/8 bars or something, and that's just kind of how it started. Just
Right.
like going at the end of a song when there was a gap, fuck it,
That's how you did
and
it.
that's just how people are like, oh, that was cool. I'm like, eh.
Right.
And then I'd freestyle in front of you, and then you're like, oh, that was dope. I'm like, eh. Then next time was even better, and you're like, oh, that's dope. Write it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, we can go into that chapter about writing and stuff. But yeah, that's.
Yeah. You were always a good freestyler. You always had, I think, because we always talk about this, or I think we talked about it on the live. There's 3 skills that an MC has.
Yes.
You're a songwriter,
Yes.
you're a freestyler, you're a battler. I only worked on songwriting. I never got good at freestyle. I did a bit for a little bit there, but I was never like exceptional. I was like competent, but I was always better at writing songs because I could piece it. Because I was a journalist as well, which I'll also get to shortly. So you refined that skill set for freestyle because you probably were doing it at parties where we weren't really doing it like that.
And also like just with the homies like GMC and Mo and all them cats, like we used to
That was
literally
later
just
on,
like.
though.
Right, true. I guess that was
So
part of the
that's
evolution of it.
a
But
good thing because you kept it all the way.
Right, yeah, because I just kind of like I found that I memorized words nice and easy, and it started off with me freestyling in like my room and later on in my car by myself. If there was enough, I'd remember a verse really nicely or easily, and then if there was enough beat at the end, I would just continue on with my own stuff. But then like just hanging out with the homies later on, just going for a session, go for a smoke, and then have a big cipher. That's just constantly what happens. So just like going to the gym, bro. You know how it is.
To keep working on it.
Yeah.
So
And I even, yeah.
go on.
Sorry.
Please, no, please.
I was saying, just like I even did the battle stuff. I did the CNFM back in the day. So there's like I've done all that sort of stuff. I wasn't very good at battling. I didn't do amazing in that competition, but I shined on the written rounds and blah, blah, blah. So I definitely, yeah, of course. But like, it was cool. And I've had that experience and it was cool and it was terrifying and I was shit and I shit myself and it was great. But having to even given that brief experience was cool. It's definitely worthwhile.
We'll get to that in a second,
was.
actually, because that was a good that's a good example of our progression. I was just going to say on the note of what you said before about people giving us shit. So you got to understand that Australia is a predominantly, or at least where we grew up with a mix of people, of course, but still a predominantly white Anglo-Saxon culture. So people don't get this type of shit. So for us, we're going to shows. I'm wearing baggy jackets, baggy jeans. I remember wearing whatever. Went to the Fuji show. I'm rocking a t-shirt. I got a lot of shit for that. I even brought a knife to school one day to stab this fucking guy it was a pussy little knife, such a pussy. That was such a dumb move. But like, if he had said something, I might have pulled it out and it probably would have backfired. But like, I was getting. I don't know. I always feel like that. Like, whilst it's not like poor us, I always felt like we really like wore it on our sleeve and we fought for the culture and it fought
for it all the time, every day. It was great.
It was really important to us. So. Skip forward, that was the 90s, and then I met those dudes, and I ended up starting a group. So with one of the dudes, his name was Matt. He was from this group of cats that I met, and then, funnily enough, we met with this other dude named Matt, who was your best friend's younger brother, and Matt now goes by 316. He is arguably one of the top 3 biggest rappers in Australia, or at least he was over the last decade. 6 was
the largest solo artist for sure.
For sure, yes, because aside from Bliss and SO Hilltop, I know now it's a bit different. He's kind of had his time and seems to be
just backed off a little, but yeah, he's
enjoying his money.
The top tier.
So he was in a group I was in a group with him when he was like 14 or 15. So me, Matt, and Matt. And we were called The Elements, funny name, but we recorded a bunch of tracks and they were pretty sick. And then he sort of went along and did his thing all over the years, which is pretty cool. A specific moment for me though. So I never forget this. It was April the 8th, 2000. I went to the Naughty by Nature show at Festival Hall in Melbourne, and this group called Battletown opened. And I had never heard of them, but they were the primary group who, I don't want to get into this in this conversation, but the way that we rap, I'm not getting into this now because it's a whole thing.
We don't have enough time on the clock, mate.
And no one even gives a fuck, but back then it was a big deal. It was the actual main conversation in music, in Australia at least. But the way they rapped were like the way we rapped, and we were the minority of people because we didn't really think about doing it any other way. We always did it this one way. The way you hear us now, we've been rapping like that since we were in our teens. It's never changed. I saw these dudes, and I saw one guy on stage, and I recognized him. His name was Andrew Gardner, and he goes by Digger, get it? And I went to primary school with him. He was in my year in primary school, and we went to the same high school. And he was the only dude in high school who I used to talk to about hip-hop too, by the way. Like, no one else fucked with it. Everyone was into Silverchair at the time and Offspring and shit. And he was into rap. Yeah. So we weren't friends, but we talked about hip-hop because he didn't have anyone else to talk about.
That was the connection.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I saw him opening for Naughty and rapping. I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I can absolutely... that was the it's doable, second that I distinctly remember, like, this is possible. Because I never thought about it. So from then, I reached out to Battletown. There was a producer by the name of Detect. He's also a rapper. And he is the main dude. So I just emailed him and said, hey, man, I've got a group with some friends. Would you produce for us and can we record? So he said he'd do it for $100 a track. So the first one we ever did was called Deep. And I'm still not, you know what? I tweeted the other day, someone's like, do you remember the first track you ever did? Like, was it fire or not? And I actually said it wasn't fire, but I wasn't thinking of that particular song because honestly, I'm not embarrassed about that verse at all. It's not whack in the slightest.
It still stands tall, mate.
Yeah, and I feel like I really don't, like I knew as soon as I heard me on the track and I really stood out amongst the other guys, I was like, all right, well, there's something here. There's something for this I got to keep going with. So we did a bunch of tracks, and back then, you couldn't, like, there wasn't like a path. Like, what are you going to do? So you're going to make an album. You're going to pay for the album and pay someone to do the design. This is before all the computer shit. There was no SoundCloud, no MySpace, no YouTube.
Yeah. No one had really done it yet. There's no path paved. So you're like,
No,
so
there
were
people
rustling.
There were people doing it, but I didn't even know what to do, right? Like, you're basically going to get them printed out and sell them on the side of the road. How are you going to sell them? You're going to go into each record store one by one and go, hey, I did this album. Will you listen to it? And can I put it on consignment? Like, you leave it there. If it sells, then you give me the money. If it doesn't, then I take it back. Like, that's the only way to do it. So we never made a project or anything. So we did that for a little bit. Then I met this other dude. And I think at the time you weren't. The reason why I'm hogging the mic right now is because I don't think you were really...
Oh, it's all good, mate.
You were, like, around for it, but you weren't making music then either. If I'm not mistaken.
I was making beats then, and I was writing stuff after you showed me how to structure a verse. But I wasn't recording anything for realsies because I was like, meh. Okay. So I was like, it started chicken scratch.
Right.
At
super
that stage,
early
I believe.
I mean, even granted, for me, it was super early. So I was only a couple of years ahead of you anyway, just mostly because of an age thing.
Yeah.
And then I met this dude, Revelino, at work. We worked together, and he was more of a producer than a rapper, and he wanted me to be on this remix with this other dude by the name of Neek, who's actually a good friend of ours now, who moved to Toronto. He's from Canada anyway, but
shout out Neek. Yeah. Neek. That's the homie.
So I was like, oh, cool, this is dope. And I was sort of teaching Rev how to rap better, and he was schooling me on production and soul samples and like different genres of music and stuff. So it was a nice little like. He wasn't very lyrical at all. He kept using the same phrases over and over. So I was like, no, like try like this. And he was helping me make my shit sound kind of more like that 02, 03 Jay-Z with the and all those little like hype things.
Very true.
I was rappity rap backpack shit. So he helped me kind of set that up, and I helped him get more lyrical. It was a good time. So you started coming along to a lot of those sessions because we worked together for like, I think it was only a year and a half all up, really. End of 2002 to the start of 2004. We did a mixtape called Soul District was the name of the group. It actually did quite well in Melbourne at the time. We performed a lot. We opened for the Outlaws. We opened for Obi Trice.
Right. That's right, yeah.
We did a bunch
Mercury
of...
Lounge, wasn't
Mercury, yeah. It was always Mercury. We did a bunch of great shows with that, man. Like, it was a big deal in Melbourne at the time. It was sick. Because I was also a club promoter. That was the funny thing. I was a nightclub promoter for that same company earlier on. And then I ended up meeting Rev and then becoming one of their artists. And then I was also a music journalist. And I was one of the top three. There's only three of us. So I think it was me, Cyclone, and like Flagrant. Were the only three music journalists in the early 2000s. So I wrote the R&B column for Impress, I think, or Beat, one of the two. I wrote like Hilltop Hood's biography for their main album, and I forgot the name of it, but 2003. I wrote that shit. I was interviewing like Exhibit. I did like front cover. I never had that was my first and only cover article on Hilltop Hoods as well. I did that shit. I got to interview Exhibit with Andrew Montell. I wrote for Out for Fame magazine, which was a real like dope Melbourne hip hop mag about graffiti and like hip hop with reviews and blah blah blah. I was a senior writer for groovon.com.au, so that was all like album reviews and like club events and
interviews and stuff like that, right? You were interviewing people on the phone, like big rappers and that.
Yeah, man. I interviewed MC Ren. We did all the stuff with like Tech Nine, Corrupt,
Chris Calico,
Loonies,
blah, blah, blah.
Chris Calico, all those dudes. So I did a decent amount of stuff in that time. So I was kind of like that was my other thing. Was yours was production and rapping. I always
because at that point, I had
journalist.
like a desktop computer. I was making like random beats on whatever I could, and then was using like
So this is like
I guess
2002 to
Acid Pro.
2003 type
Yeah,
shit.
and because I already been like rapping, and you showed me already how to write and structure stuff. So when I came into the Midnight Studios with Revenue, like I already had bars and shit ready to go. And even though I wasn't on any of the songs, I didn't expect to be or whatever. Any beat that Rev put up or you were rapping to, like by the time you wrote and recorded your shit, I'd have a verse written to it anyway. And so I was literally just writing. I had fucking a whole album worth of bars, or album worth of verses, just like because I was there and I wanted to hang out and soak it in anyway. And while Rev was making beats on that MPC 2000 XL, I was asking him, "Hey man, what'd you do that for? Oh, what's that for? What? Oh, that sounds different. What'd you do that for?" So I asked him fucking 200 questions an evening.
Right.
Some I'd write down, some I just remember because it was so cool. And just seeing, because I was doing it in the box, I was chopping and doing shit in a computer with a mouse and a keyboard. This motherfucker had a machine with knobs and buttons, pause, and just like, it's just, dude, it was so crazy to me. So that was like, oh, okay. And I already had rhythm. I could like help him, and sometimes he'd let me smash the pads and add shit into beats and whatever. So like, I got a little mini hands on, and I got
Nice.
the chance to flex the pen, and then. I'd ask you shit, I'd ask Rev shit, and you were teaching him how to rap. I already knew how to rap better than him at the point because you told me already, and I was already like freestyling and honing the stuff. So those sessions were crazy for me too, even though I was like essentially fly on the wall hanging out.
Yeah, I was a little vexed it didn't pan out was because I left. I went and lived in Canada for a year at the end of that. And then during that time, I think he always kind of look, Rev's the homie still. But I think he kind of like little brothered you a little bit, like, and didn't really put you on joints when you should have. And I was gone in 2004, so I didn't sort of have the control. And they even took me off the cover of my own mixtape because they didn't. I told them like a year before that I was leaving. So I was a little vexed about that, but it was still a dope experience because I didn't get the props for that like he did because people didn't know.
Yeah, we both got a little screwed there, but it definitely was a good learning experience and a good place to cut our teeth, and grateful for it. Fuck.
Totally. The only problem was because literally, I think 2003. I think I spent every single night in the studio. Didn't matter what it was, and
true. Yeah, we were there a lot, man.
We got high every fucking day, and like to be honest, we just weren't productive. Like we should have done in a year. I'd work during the day. I should
have had 2 tapes
minimum. I do like journalism.
Of the same amount because it was like wasn't it 15 songs on each?
20.
15, 16 songs. So if you had done 2 tapes, it would have been crazy. 20 songs is a fuckload, dude.
It was still a bunch
of
B-sides that didn't make it. But...
Right. So yeah, like everyone was doing long ass mixtapes then. That's very productive.
That was normal, and they were all original too. By the way, it's a mixtape, but it was all original production. No samples, but
street album, whatever.
Yeah, street album is basically what it was.
Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But I was
crazy
doing journalism work during the day, going to work at a call center for like 5 to 9, coming home eating, then go in the studio by like 10:30, 11. Then we stay there till 5 in the morning, then do that shit again every single fucking day. It was cool, but like we're just high all the time, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but we just the productivity was gone. So we did that shit. I lived in Canada, blew my fucking mind in 2004. I think then you were hanging out with the same dude, and we'd met GMC and through some other cats. I skipped some parts because there was some whack shit that we did along the way. But you know how you do when you're young, you're just trying to find anyone to work with. So you were rocking with some, we met GMC, who ended up being a super dope dude, great MC, and all of his boys. When I was gone, I got to sort of meet, because I knew Eternia. I had interviewed her, so she became a friend, and she really hooked us up in Canada. And we, got us into shows. I got to meet, like, Little Brother, like Fontaine them, and got backstage at Royce because of her. We got to meet all the dudes, like Atom Bomb, super early. Look, I was a kid to them, so they were just like, yeah, this guy. But it was just nice to see that, and I was doing some tracks with some dudes. So I met Chris Blair, this other cat, who was didn't end up being like, I don't think he still does any music now, but it was just cool for people to be like down with what we're doing, and they were like appreciating the music and stuff. I was like, oh fuck, like this can really work, and that was like a real big moment for me because I came back like, yo, we can like do this, man, like. And that's when it was 2004. You come over and we traveled through Europe for 2 months at the end of 2004. You came back like a few weeks before we did. And I'd lived overseas for about a year by the time I came back. And then the first thing we did, because I was in a group with a singer at the time, and we had come up with the name for it and the project and all that stuff. and which actually was my first mixtape in that group, was called The Soul Movement Volume 1, which funnily enough was Beat Child from Toronto called his mixtape or album Soul Movement Volume 1, but ours was released like a year earlier and stuff, motherfucker. It's not exactly like a riveting, but that's where the movement fam came from, because it was called The Soul Movement Volume 1, and then we just kind of took the movement fam from that. But I was working on that tape because basically I've always been in groups. I was never solo, so we'll get to that. But you did your first solo tape. It dropped in 2006.
2006. Yeah, because during like since the midnight sessions in 2002, 3. I've been writing. So I had a lot of shit, and then I was recording stuff at home on Cool Edit 2.0, shout out. Yeah. And then just getting some stuff done, and then because I was hanging with GMC and all that, he showed me how to use Acid Pro a little bit, and then it was just better than what I was using. So then just started to build up from there. So then I was working with Dub K, and I didn't. Yeah, so I didn't actually have, when I started working at his joint, I didn't have my own setup in my house yet. Okay. And so I was still writing heavy, and I was still going over there to record and sorting that out. So then once I found, I think I had 26 songs on that, dude.
It's a lot.
26 songs.
But everything was
stupid. Everything was long ass,
super long
songs. And there's a couple of freestyles, but I brought all of my best verses to those sessions and just threw it on whatever. So all those earlier days set me up for that. So I was just I had years and years of verses to put into songs, and then so it's my turn. Was the focus in 2006.
And the other thing that I forgot to mention is in 2005, when we came back, we started going to, there was 2 different open mic nights that we used to go to. One was at a place called The Spot in Brunswick. I think that used to be on a Tuesday, and then that was for 6 months or a year. And then the same host, Litigate, shouts to Nick, he moved it to a other place called the Evelyn, which was our favorite place to perform, I guess, because it was their home ground on Mondays. And we went every week religiously. We were performing to fucking 5 people in the crowd, and we still rock it. We had no choice, but you were tell me if I'm what I'm talking about to say how you used to feel before shows and then still came through.
Yeah, I used to get mad nervous. I used to throw up all the time, man. I used to just, whether I'm having water or beer or it doesn't matter, I just get a little anxious, and to the point that if I had any liquid, I just wanted to throw it up. So I get all sorts of fucked up.
Fucking killed it, man. Every time you were I was always man, fucking Brad the poor cunt. But then you came through and you dominated every single time. I don't remember one time you bailed, even if you were feeling sick or you were sick. Word up. So respect, man. It's crazy, man. You came through it. And
thanks, dude.
Because think about it this, right? For anyone listening, be man, you perform at a 6 p.m. It's not about that. Melbourne is.
We also performed to 150 people in the same place, man. Depending on if anyone had an album launch or whatever. We did.
Right.
Mixtape launch was fire too. And mixtape launch was fucked, man. So we did my whole mixtape. We did it. We split it in half. It was 2 45-minute sets. I peaked before the first one, in the middle between the first and the second one, and after the end, man, my throat was red raw. You wouldn't even know. And I didn't even speak for 3 days after that. That was fucked.
I can imagine.
But that was crazy because we did it.
And Six and Pez opened for you.
Six and Pez, I performing, shout out to the boys.
Dope. Yeah, right.
That was
dope.
That was an evening.
Because that it really was. But that time, and this is what I always I don't want to ever sound like the old dude, but these kids who don't have those opportunities, or if there's no things like that, events that you
there's no local to cut the teeth out. Yeah,
man. And it's not even just that. One, you get to learn how to perform, which is key. 2, you get to learn how to talk to people and mingle, and you're oh yeah, man, let me hear your beats, or someone will come up, a new producer, or just want to meet rappers, so they'll come up, or singers or whatever, and they'll just share all the stuff. So all the people that are big in Australia now, a lot of them were through that. His name is Grey Ghost now, but he used to be called Jeremedy from a group called the Melodics.
Right.
Someone I personally don't get along with, but Illy, he was there back in the day, started the same time we did.
Mantra.
He's done quite well. Mantra was always around. Even if you want to say his name goes by Bam Bam now, but Joel he used to be called Fluid, and he was in multiple groups and different stuff. 60, 360 and Pez, both of them great dudes. They've both done really well. GMC, he's done pretty good. SK, but he stopped rapping. There's a lot of dudes that like we came up with that we met and collaborated with and worked with a lot. And specifically for us, another dude or two dudes who were from that original Battletown crew I was talking about, Weapon X and Ken Hell, they were like the gods of that shit because they were signed to a major. They signed to a label called Elusive, who was owned by the son of the dude who owned Mushroom Records, and Mushroom was the guy who found Kylie Minogue and shit. What's his fucking name? I'm gonna have a blank, but super famous. I couldn't be bothered googling, but because they were signed to this label, like they were like the gods. They were putting out like, you know, when you probably $50,000, $100,000 music videos and shit, like with camera crews, because there was no other way to do it back then, and that was on TV. They had this shit on television. They were like in the record stores. Like they were the gods. So they were our friends. We still talk to them now, specifically X, but they were like the dudes. So they had a series of mixtapes called Cee and Notion. And we never got on there. That was like our goal. We wanted to get like just a feature verse because they featured everyone. So we didn't really get to that stage. We were like the younger kind of dudes. Or
obviously not everyone, mate.
What do you mean?
I said obviously not everyone because
didn't get on it.
We didn't get on it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I'm just being
everyone
tricky.
but us got on it. Yeah, sorry, I missed the joke. Boom. Hey, applause for me.
Put it on. You got buttons? All right,
I got buttons. Oh, you can't hear it? Yeah, sorry. You'll see it in post.
You're right.
See it in post. So basically, we did. We actually, do you remember in 2006 after we had your launch? That was the first big launch that we had for our own projects, and this was even before we were officially even with the TMF stuff. Like we were helping each other. We were just working together because we were brothers and we were in it, but we didn't do it officially. We went to Sydney twice, 2006 and 2007, for this new thing called the Urban Music Awards.
Yeah.
And that was, our friends were nominated, like Justice and Chaos, who were signed to Weapon. This is so complicated, I guess, for people who don't know who we're talking about. But Weapon X and Ken Hell had a record label with Andrew Montel, who I mentioned before, who used to own Alpha Fame, and now he started a magazine called Acclaim. They owned a label called Solid State Recordings, and they signed Justice and Chaos. Justice won Scribble Jam in 2005 for anyone who knows battle rap. So Justice was a big deal. They had a deal with Warner and shit.
That was the last year of the freestyle ones before they started doing like pre-done.
The World Rap Championships was
after that. All freestyle, yeah.
Correct. And they also signed GMC. So Justice and Chaos, they were nominated for awards. So we went up to Sydney the 2 years, and the second year we got the VIP with them. They got us because my good friend Shane Hood, who I mentioned earlier, ended up managing all of those dudes, all the Solid State guys. Shane managed them along with Motley, who was from the UK but lived in Melbourne, who's also I still talk to him. He's a G. So it's complicated, but we went to Sydney for that. That was super cool because we got to sort of be around them and just put our money up for the hotel and the flights and but we got all the free drinks and got to go to the event. And we had your mixtape for that first year. We were giving that shit out everywhere. And then second year, I might have had my mixtape. I don't know if I brought it though because it was like you had the cardboard cover, which is much more travel efficient. And I had the dual.
You had the maxi single or whatever.
Maxi, that's all.
Oh, yeah.
So we dropped your shit. Then I think we started the Movement Fam. I always thought it was 2008, but maybe it was 2007. I can't remember.
No, because World Domination dropped in 2008, so that was my second joint. So like we were, I guess it would have been.
Was it Team F logo?
Maybe.
Okay, so maybe it is. I always put January.
Yeah, of course it was.
Okay, so it was on that. All right, that means we started.
Kid 8 did that. Kid 8 did the logo. Kid 8 did the artwork for World Domination. So it had to be either
before
the very start of 08 or definitely 07.
Okay.
Or even late 06.
Good point. So that means
because It's My Turn came out in September 2006. So then it must have been right after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe because we were like, this is dumb. We should just be working together on something more official. So TMF was just like a crew. It was like me,
and we had there was Tommy Guns, Therese, all the boys like Magnificent.
Yeah.
G, like everyone was just there.
Yeah. Yeah, we had it was like an evolving kind of crew of just mostly our friends that we were working with who were rappers or whatever. So then I did my mixtape, which was sort of soul and hip hop together. And once again, this was a huge mixtape era, so everyone was just rapping over jam beats.
That's all we did. Yeah,
that's not all anybody really did, right? So
we're all trying to be Lil Wayne mixtape Weezy.
Yes, we were huge Lil Wayne fans. It's like some of those dudes, like G and GMC and some of his mates, they only listen to Lil Wayne exclusively. I don't even think they.
I know.
They were into Budden a bit, but like mostly Wayne. So
Me too.
Very interesting.
It was gangster. Yeah, it was great. Good times. It was all just like good lyricists. That's all we cared about. It doesn't matter if they were actually fire on tracks. We just cared about fucking bars.
Yes, agreed.
That's all it was at the time.
We were just all about lyrics back then. So we did that tape.
Bars.
And then in 2000, and then we started getting some blog love. Like I remember Planet Urban. Shouts to those cats, Dash and Chris Z.
Yeah, Dash,
and Andrew Hickey, who now moved to Minnesota. Funny dude.
Yeah.
So those
Everyone's
cats,
out here.
everyone is, right? So they helped us. We started getting some blog love, and then we connected with this blogger Kevin Nottingham, and I think this was around 2007, 2008. And he was like one of the top 5, arguably, big blogs alongside Narite, OK Player, Two Dope Boys.
Yeah, he
whatever.
won something, didn't he? He won. He got some big promotion because he won some Blogger of the Year or
Probably.
Blog of the Year or something like that. And then that was kind of like, oh, this looks all right. And then kind of offered a thing to us, right?
So even before that, he was just supporting us, and we started getting a bunch of love from he was just helping us out, posting our stuff. I was talking
Sharing
to him
stuff, yeah.
And we decided to do we called it like a radio tour in 2008. So your second mixtape, World Domination, and my second mixtape, The Soul Movement Volume 2, we did a radio tour, and we went around, where did we go? Seattle, San Francisco, Atlanta, Toronto, New York, Los Angeles, I think. And we did that for like 5 weeks. And we went on like major radio shows to DJ Hyphen in Seattle. We worked with the understudies, and part of the understudies was our friend Poe. And Poe, I did a full-length album with him in 2018 that dropped, Bad Habits, which inspired the name of the podcast. Good story.
Fire.
It was our first time. We wrote and we ended up releasing a song called Never Going Away out in Oakland, in Berkeley. We recorded that shit.
Mm-hmm.
That was super, super fun for us because it was a big deal.
That was super crazy.
Yeah, they loved it. Recorded on the spot and just vibed with these cats and smoked their local shit and drank their local beer and stuff. Like, it was really cool. Chick kicked it with DJ Grain, who ended up, that was when the idea for the Valentine's Day mixtape started. With you and him came up with that in the car in 2008. Then we started in 2009. We're still doing it, and it's 2020, which is fucking crazy. There's so many things to connect all of this stuff, and we're trying to compact 30 years into like a short period of time.
That's why we're kind of going in and out or diving into things longer than normal. So I'm sorry, guys, but it all makes sense. There's a method to the madness.
There is.
Even though it's patchy, like, we're going to fill in as much as we can.
Yeah, and then
keep it comprehensible.
There's a mild expectation of assumed knowledge here as well. Like, that you kind of are somewhat familiar with who we are and what we do to a degree, and you might have been like, oh, so that's how that came about, blah, blah, blah. So then, we're nearly getting there, guys. We did that in 2008, and that was the moment when we flew into Toronto. I always tell people that was, I flew back in, I was like, oh, we need to move here. Like, and that was it, and I checked immigration, and then we were able to. The thing had changed, the working holiday visa. So then in 2009,
so crazy.
Kevin Nottingham was starting a label. That was fantastic, TLDR. Thank you, man. Thank you, Tiffany. You're the best. Sorry, Tiffany just put up a comment. She said that was fantastic, TLDR.
Oh, lovely.
So like,
thanks, Tiffaz.
We're trying to get to even more TLDR. We're going to compact the last 10 years now, real quick. Kevin was starting a label called Hypnot Records, and he hit me up and he was like, "I want to sign you, Nosh, and Tom in the crew." And we were like, fuck yeah, let's go. And then he hit me not long after, and it was kind of getting cold feet. And he was kind of like, oh, man, it just seems like a lot of work, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, bro, I've got this tape and this album in the way, and this EP, and we've got Tommy's EP, and blah, blah, blah. And we had all of these lists. He's like, fuck, you guys need your own label. And then he was like, you know what? Let's do it. All right. So I essentially talked him into it. I don't think he'd ever admit it. And I think everyone hates him now anyway. I think he's like a Trump guy, unfortunately. So it's probably a good thing.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Whack.
So he ended up selling the label to somebody else who was signed to the label after us. At the time, there was a bunch of people signed to it, and they were super cool. So that gave us, we were like, you know what? Let's just move to North America. There's no point. In Australia, once again, long form, there wasn't much for us to get any traction. There's one radio station there that consistently plays hip-hop all day, which is Triple J. And that is a national, like nationwide. It's not just like one region. Like they played, it was the same thing the whole country, and they were the way. That's how you got in the game. And
then the reason we got played on there is because of Maya Jupiter.
Yes,
shout out to Maya.
Married to Aloe Black now, so she was actually also on an interlude on the Soul District mixtape. Tying them in. So Maya's cool. Maya was always super cool with us. Didn't know her mad well, but like she was always like, because she was in like the age group or the group of people above us with Weapon X and them. She came up with him.
Very true.
That's why we weren't like cool, but so we got a little bit of play here and there. They had PBS and Triple R and things like that. I know we did some interviews on Triple R and PBS before and shit, but there just wasn't many ways for us to get traction. We were doing our own show, so we ended up just stopped fucking with the scene completely. We started doing shows with bands. So we would rock with bands that either had rappers instead of a singer, or we started rocking with like our friends' bands, Fading Hour, who sounded like Tool, really. And we did a song with them, which is called Celestine. We did a remix to one of their songs, and it's on this YouTube channel.
That's a banger.
I love that. It's a live performance of it because it's so fun, just going crazy and screaming, and there's guitars next to you and shit. It's so fun. So that was cool for us, and then we're just like, let's just get out of here and like roll the dice, man. Let's do it. So we moved to Toronto in 2010 in September. So it's 10 years this year in September, which is wild.
Damn.
Keep in mind, we were signed to Kevin Nottingham, who typically at the time hadn't even really given us much, and he's based out of Miami, Florida, by the way. He hadn't really given us much crazy support. We didn't get plenty of blog love. Like, I managed to get Mick Boogie and Terry Urban to mix my third mixtape, which was pretty dope because they're a big deal. And I would have been able to have access to them, I don't think, without it. I mean, look, you pay money for it, but like it wasn't like...
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, that was super dope to have them because I had the commissioner, that little sound effect, which was a big deal because they did all the little brother
At the time,
joints.
it was huge. Yeah.
So we moved here in 2010. We were here for like 2 weeks. We went straight to Atlanta for A3C. Then we went to CMJ.
Yes.
We had to meet, Emilio Rojas, who I'd done a song with, and we met Crooked Eye at A3C, which was amazing because he sat with us.
Yeah, I got to talk to Crooked. Yep.
You spoke to him, and then you brought me over.
Yeah.
Tell him what happened.
I got to meet. I just saw Crooked Eye there, and he's just dressed in all blue, LA Dodgers gear. I was like, oh, gangster, because like I'm big on Slaughterhouse. Anyway, so I saw him. It's like, hey man, peace. Like I came up with full respect. Hey man, I just wanted to say peace. Like you're a big influence. I appreciate blah blah. I heard all your when you're on the he's on the radio every single week with the weekly releases. I forgot what that was called. Anyway, I told him that. And he's like, cool. And he's like, oh, what are you from England? Whatever. I was like, nah, man, boom. So I told him the story, and then he was just like, man, that's crazy. Like y'all gave all that up to move over here, boom, boom. So I'm like, yeah. And then he was just like, that's crazy, man. That's super dope. He just was super receptive, and he was just like, that's amazing. That's super inspirational. And I said, yeah, me and my brother. He's like, right over there. I want to introduce you. He's like, yeah, cool. I'm just chilling. He was standing by himself. He was just chilling. He's holding that big dirty cigar. He was just fucking just cooling. So he was super cool to give me like almost 10 minutes, and then I come got you. But yeah, we bumped into heaps of dudes. Like bumped into Sky Zoo, who I did a song with. Bumped into who was also chilling with Jean Grey. We also bumped into Ninth Wonder as well.
Yeah.
And that was insane. I saw him. I got like starstruck like a mother. I got a photo and it looked like a deer in the headlights.
That was so fun.
Looked white as a ghost. Looked like about 12 also. Ninth Wonder's about 6'10", and at the time, like I'm 6'3", but like I guess I was pretty much the same height. But he looks like huge compared to me, and I look like a little boy, and it's amazing. So I got to meet some legends at those crazy festivals. That was super sick. People we've done collabos with. That was fire.
And you got to understand, for us, it's a big deal because we're coming from a place where these people just aren't around. You can't just go to a festival and see these guys, right? So for us, it was huge. So we put our money up. That's the difference. This is why I really, with us, but we put our money. We moved to another country, away from our family, with no real connections. We had to pay for everything out of pocket. We went and just dropped all the money to, on the plane fares, and and we went to South by Southwest, CMW in Toronto. Like we went to all the festivals and we were just meeting people, and we got a publicist. We put our money up and got a publicist when we first said it was definitely too soon. But like it was like wanted to just really go hard. We were doing shows in Toronto. We got a few little gigs. We knew nobody, man. We were just hustling, trying to meet people, anybody I talked to online and stuff. We met Ill Vibe early on, and LS from up in Barrie, who both still around, still talk to those dudes. So we were working, and then 2012, I moved to Montreal essentially to keep me in the country. It was easier for me to do that than stay in Toronto, and cheaper. So we moved here, learned French at school to keep me in here, which was hilarious. Still can't speak this shit.
Oui, les poupou.
So for those who don't know, I'm based in Montreal, and Notion is still in Toronto.
Yeah.
Basically, one thing that helped us a lot, though, this is an interesting part. Tiff and I, so Tiff's my girlfriend, we moved here for that. She also essentially like co-runs everything with the three of us for
like
TMF,
a boss,
as she is. And we got involved with this event called Hip Hop Karaoke Montreal. And funnily enough, I was just talking to someone. We worked in the Apple Store in Toronto, which is the busiest retail environment in Canada. Funny story.
In Canada, yeah.
In Canada. So Tiff and people always talk to me, and they're always just like, so you talk funny. What's up with you? And then I tell them,
what's wrong with you? You talk funny.
What's that from?
Sorry.
Is that from
I'm just making it up.
Oh, okay. That's pretty much what happened every day. And this
awesome.
lady said to me, my daughter, I told her I'm moving to Montreal. She said, my daughter lives in Montreal. She runs an event called Hip Hop Karaoke. I'm like, no shit. She's like, she's actually moving to San Francisco. They're looking for someone to take over. And I'm like, no shit. So we went to Montreal specifically on the weekend that it was happening. Went to the event to check it out because I didn't like the idea of it. Because on paper, hip hop karaoke is whack as fuck, right? Like it's
because people can't rap, eh? Like
no. But we were like, you know what? Think about it. It's a business opportunity. There's money in it, and we're moving to a new city now. Not only do we not know anybody, because at least in Toronto, I'd lived there before, so I knew people, and I knew how the city worked, and I knew how the money worked, and all that. There wasn't as much of a culture shock. But going to Montreal, there's a language barrier, and I knew nobody except Dr. Mad, but I didn't know I knew him at the time because I talked to him years before online. So we got involved with hip hop karaoke. And the good thing about that was, one, we learned a lot about business and how it all worked. We learned more about the events game. And even though we'd been running events at home, it was an interesting way because there was 7 of us running it, which is a lot of people. But we got to learn, like one of the dudes who was the main guy who his first team left and then he replaced him with us. He was a publicist based in New York and stuff. So he kind of knew people and shit. So it was good to learn how that worked and get contests and, be able to get sponsors and all that type of stuff. So we learned a lot. But on top of that, I got to meet the host, was this dude, D-Shade, who was like the OG of Montreal. Like the Maestro Fresh West of Montreal is D-Shade. So he became a really good friend of mine and we worked together a bunch. We were going to do a whole album together too. It just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I got to meet all the promoters, all the DJs, all the rappers, all the singers. And then what that allowed us to do is allowed us to get all the support slots. So in 2013, the summer of 2013 was the best touring year, I guess, because I opened for Raekwon. They gave me a chance. There's one dude who, to be honest, he was a drug dealer for sure. Never done shows before. And
he's had mad guap, eh?
He had mad cash, and you could just tell the way he moved. It was funny. He was nice, super nice though.
Slimy kids.
No, he wasn't slimy at all. But it was just like the type of dude that he was, like a street dude who's definitely not a club promoter. No, fair enough because they can. And so they put me on for Raekwon, and the best part about that was that because of him being like a street dude, all the other openers, there were 6 openers. I'm sure he charged them. They were all trap dudes with glasses and like chains and stuff.
Whack.
And it was Raekwon.
Lil Pumps.
It's grimy, like sort of. This was long before Lil Pump, I guess, but like same thing. Like, why are you putting these
as trash?
As trash. They were terrible. And then I was just by myself with a DJ and doing like soulful hip hop. And then mad dudes, I went on 3rd out of 6, and mad people were already bored because they came to see Raekwon, not this trap shit. And dudes in the crowd were just stopping me and dapping me up. Oh shit, didn't know a white boy could spit like that. I'm like, yeah, son, that's what's up. Like, it was very, very cool. So then, because of that, the promoter hit me out. He's like, boom, you got the Most Def shows, because he was doing Most Def, and that was the audition for the Most Def show, essentially. So me and you were like, aside from Nasi, the narcissist, who's like good friends with Most Def, we were the main headline opener.
Yeah, but with the other opener, yeah.
Well, there was Jai Nitai as well, but he went after us. It's just we got that spot because we did well. So we got to open for Most Def, which was like packed house, 350, 400 people, which is one of the biggest crowds we performed to. So we got to do that. Sure. We opened for Odyssey. We opened through a different dude, but like same venue at the Belmont. We got
Odyssey was dope.
Bliss and Esso, because we knew the dudes at Cabaret Underworld, which is now closed venue, but we knew those dudes from the same connections. So we got on all those shows. I opened for Slum Village. We did Black Milk. We did J. Rue the Damager.
Yeah, Black Milk was sick. J. Rue, yep.
We did Hilltop Hoods. That was
Hilltop Hoods, yep.
And these shows were good for us because, like, even Hilltop, we came out because we're Australian. It was a good fit, and the Aussies playing in Canada. But like,
so many Aussies in the crowd who was not expecting that.
Dudes were staunch. At Bliss and Esso, they were cool. At Hilltop, they weren't cool. They were staunch. So we have a thing in our sets where halfway through the set, say like a 20-minute set, which is typically an opener set, which is mostly what we would do. We'd do the 3 songs, and then we do 3 songs at the end. But in the middle, we would have like an instrumental,
a little
like
cipher thing, yeah.
And it was like a Kendrick's High Power, or we did J. Cole Lights Please and shit. And we go down to the crowd, and we go in the crowd, and every time we do that, and we come back up, all the people who were staunch standing back rush the stage. Like, it worked. It was just so cool because it taught us, like, yo, we can fucking do this, man. Like, we were doing well. We were getting more people wanting photos and buying our merch than the actual openers who had a big name and were on tour with them. So, like, all of these looks were doing good. This was back when touring was a big thing. In 2014, we did a bunch of tours. Who we toured? We toured with Palmer Squares.
With Relic and Fresh Kills.
The Golden Tour with Hezekiah. We brought Hezekiah
the Golden
out.
Tour, yeah. My Clarity.
We did Bodega Brothers.
Bodega. I was just exactly their Blood, Sweat, and Beers tour, I think it's called.
Yes,
anyway,
it was.
We did bunch of good stuff.
And then, so that was pretty dope. And we did some more like openers that summer. And then we did our own headline tour in 2015, which was cool. And that was like a regional tour, because usually the regional shows we learned to do better. And then basically we sort of intentionally haven't done... I did a show with Jonathan Emile. I did a verse. He opened for Royce 59. I think it was 2016, so I did a verse for that. But like we haven't... Oh, and we started another event called Hip Hop and Breakfast in Toronto, and we did a show there. I think that was 2015. But that was the first and only performance, because we just stopped the performing. But basically we stopped doing live performances because we realized, like, even for the tours, the amount of money, you're lucky if you break even. You got to always, you got to pay for all the things yourselves. You got to physically go around and put fucking posters up. Like, you got to convince people to spend $10 to even just walk in the door, which most of the time they would. And then on top of that, you want them to buy a t-shirt. Now, some places they loved us, like Kingston, London, Ontario.
London, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They loved us out there. Ottawa wasn't too bad, but like...
Barrie was always good too.
Barrie was good for us. We performed there a lot. Yeah. And it was just like redundant. Well, this is dumb. Like, why are we doing it? Let's just focus on that. And so right now we haven't done shows for quite some time intentionally, because we're just putting out music. And I feel like if we're going to do shows, I don't want to do them this like shit way. We've paid our dues. We've done the years of open mic nights, and we've done our own tours. We've toured with other people, and I just don't see a payoff. The payoff would be to, I imagine, would be to get a video popping or a single on, on playlists on Spotify or something, and that's how we're gonna grow our audience. And then we're gonna get a real show, and then people are gonna actually give a fuck. There's still a lot of people still won't know you, but or you get on a festival if we ever have shows again, I guess, which is also shows that our strategy was good, because no one can do shows right now. Right?
So I was switching all the everyone's got to pivot to the digital side, and everyone's just trying to make video clips at home if they are just trying to do something, trying to get any new content out. Everyone's just scrambling.
And that's why we're doing this.
Not much you can do, yeah.
No, and then the last thing I want to just mention, because there's not really much else, was that I dropped 3... So I went solo for the first time in 2011. Did my first solo single in 2012. I did 3 mixtapes called The Indie Experiment, Volume 1 through 3. And I was rapping over... I thought it was good, but it was so fronted on, because I was rapping over like non-hip-hop songs in the gaps between the songs, as opposed to like just making a beat out of it. Maybe it's a little bit too experimental for people, but... It was
hell slept on, man. Like, the people I've played that to that are actually just rock fans, they're like, what the fuck? This is better than the original. Like, half of them that they heard, like, yo, that's seamless. Like, they like that shit. So,
I feel like
got played to the wrong audience, man. I reckon.
I agree. I feel like it's one of those things where people will discover the back catalogue once we have something that pops off. And then how did it work? In 2013, I dropped Steps to the Peak with Dr. Mad, an EP. Ended up essentially being an album dedicated to Montreal, which did really well here, because it was about Montreal and people fucked with it. 2014, I did my album This Is All I Know, which was great. That was a lot of features we'd collected over the years from Emilio. Hezekiah had beats from Illmind, because I got him from the MySpace days, stuff like that. Then 2013, you also dropped Pride on My Cufflinks, your EP, right, a couple months after I dropped Steps to the Peak. End of 2015, I dropped an EP with 76 called Be Better. 2016 was a bad year for us, so it was just some singles, for personal reasons. 2017 was your album dropped, and that shit was fire. The Heart on My Sleeve album did super well. We made a beer for us, our first ever beer collab. We did a big launch party in Toronto, went super well, like a listening kind of party rather than a performance, which I think was like a better vibe. Super well received. The only unfortunate side of everything for that is that because of the times, and because we're not really touring or doing shows like that, you never got to have a pressed up version of your first album, which you could still do it, but it's almost like spend the money.
No one at the time, like, streaming was king and still is, and like no one gave a shit about really buying it, and it wouldn't have been. I would have sold like 7 copies. Literally, everyone's like, "Oh, I don't have a CD player anymore, dude. My computer doesn't have a CD drive."
Yeah, neither do we. Don't have one.
Fucking fair enough, dude. I guess I won't fucking print them up. Yeah, no, it's fine. I definitely wasn't mad at that. I just wanted to hold it, but like, I've done that a few times. Like, I had the 3 mixtapes. Also, we missed talking about Notion 9th.
Oh, fuck.
In there, 2009.
2000.
I'm not just saying, like, that was the third.
And I had Volume 3 too. Yeah.
Pride of my, so whatever. We missed that. Because that's what I get. That's what I met. 9th Wonder, I gave him that mixtape I made for him and was like, yo. Anyway, I didn't say that before.
On the corner of Notion and 9th, and you were rapping over all night
His
wonder
production.
beats for that, which was a really cool theme for a mixtape, and it was dope because you got to meet the guy and
Yeah.
and do it. And
He didn't
speaking,
give a shit though, unfortunately.
well, because it was also at a, it was in the middle of a festival. It was at A3C. He's walking past. He's going somewhere. Probably had
No,
to
no, like
perform.
no, I'm just talking like after, like, we're verified on Twitter. I chat to on Twitter, and it is just like didn't seem to care. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
It's just like,
maybe it's like it's okay. You can't take it personal because you don't know him. There's no relationship. Why would he care that some dude he doesn't know? Like,
Internet's
yeah,
okay. We good?
You're back.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's almost like why would
Yeah,
he?
no, I'm not mad. I was just saying,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
just like,
Michael
Yes.
Pignataro says, "Love you guys." XO.
oh, Mickle,
That is our DJ Digital Junkie.
Digital Junkie is the man.
So I used to work with him at Apple. We just kept in touch and we're friends. And he ended up getting us some gigs. We headlined the Port Hope Jazz Festival in 2014, which was a great.
That was a riot.
Great look on paper, shit show in real life, but it looked good, and we had a nice. We got paid the most we ever got paid to do a show. So we out here.
For a show, yeah. It was
Mike
good
is
time-
G,
Good times.
and Mike has he's an orchestrator. He basically DJ'd our whole tour. We did the solo tour. Whenever we do shows, we always have Mike. Tiff's like, "Hey, Mike," good old Mick. And Mike does all our cuts. So if you basically, for the most part, Mike does a lot of our cuts on our songs, on our projects and stuff like that, which is dope. I was talking to him today actually about cuts from my new project, which I guess we'll get to later. So to sum up, what else was I saying? Just the project. So 2017, we had your album. I did the one single per month, and I actually kind of wanted to like compile that as an album name or with a cover or something, because there's like 12 songs and they're all fire.
You might as well.
2018, I had Bad Habits album, and you had your Notion Island Volume 1 with Egward, producer. So you had an EP. And then last year, neither of us dropped any, just a couple singles. It was a good of a quiet year. And then this year, we got a bunch of stuff coming. So maybe we'll just talk about that, and then we can shut the fuck up about us now that that's over and move on with what the podcast is going to normally be.